I'm Emma. I'm the owner and founder of Zimt, and I appreciate you being here today to learn about all things having a chocolate factory. It's certainly something fanciful, but few are mentally deranged enough to achieve it. Not this guy. This guy has done so 3 times, and I'm going to walk you through how that's been. I'll start out by saying, and this sounds like disgustingly privileged, I actually never wanted to have a chocolate factory for Zimt. And I get that that sounds terrible, but please hear me out. I had experienced both before really delving into creating our own in-house facilities for manufacturing. And I can say that having lived both experiences prior to really setting something up for ourselves, that gave me a perspective that, there are far easier ways of getting, one's brainchild to market that I unfortunately at that point when I was at a crossroads was not able to choose the easier option if I wanted Zimt to continue. So Zimt's story, I mentioned in the last video, I, like many other food entrepreneurs, started making product in my what was then home kitchen. Also mentioned, go back and watch that video. There's only so far you can go if you take that approach of manufacturing in your own kitchen. So it was 2011, a long time ago, and at that point, as you'll know from watching that video, there was not much in the way of commissary space available. So commissaries are where like you as an individual business can go and manufacture your product, rent some space. There's all the equipment there you need typically, there's storage, all sorts of things. It's kind of great, but it costs an arm and a leg. And it wasn't really a thing in 2011 around here. So where we really got our first start is shout out to St. Mary's Carrisdale. So I was able to rent some kitchen space in a church in Carrisdale, which was not far from the home I grew up in. Kind of incredible. Similar to now, like very, very lucky I'm able to bike to work. That's wild. I think I'm even closer now to Zimt than I was back then. Anyway, so manufactured out of there. And it was a really, really good time in a lot of ways. The rent was next to nothing. It was, they were very generous with their space. They didn't use the kitchen too much. And so we kind of got free reign for a number of days a week, which was lovely. And the people who worked out of there were really, really sweet. So that's kind of where we got our start. I did invest in some very, very basic equipment. Very, very basic equipment just to like get us going. And yeah, it was a really lovely time. It didn't last too long. It was maybe 8 or 9 months or so that we were working out of there. I say we because it was like my family actually, whoever wasn't working, which like that's a long story. They were able to come help me, which like that was really nice. I do not take that for granted. And then we had to move on. I needed to find another space. And there had been a vegan cupcake shop on the other side of town. And I knew the woman who was running it, so she allowed me to rent the back of her shop like 1 or 2 days a week. I don't recall. That was a good bridge. I think I should just say now, acknowledge how stressful it is to be a small business owner, where like I think for some small businesses, like if you start at kind of like a consulting thing, you can get paid for your time. But I know that in food manufacturing, or where you're creating, it's not even where you're creating a product, it's like literally food manufacturing, you are rarely paid for your time. So in operating with these other small food manufacturers, I know they were under a ton of stress, and I think that was one of the reasons why we had to move on to our next kitchen, which was no longer a vegan yogurt factory in North Vancouver. And that was really great in a lot of ways too. Kind of same story. Rented it from a guy. That's where things like kind of started picking up for us in terms of sales, and we only got the kitchen space 1 day a week. So I definitely spent a number of like 23-hour shifts there. Just, yeah, like trying to fill orders, manufacturing throughout. It was in an industrial area, so it was like very quiet around at like 3 in the morning. Um, yeah, but that's where you got to do what you got to do to keep things going. So, yeah, I remember definitely spending more than a handful of 23, 24-hour shifts there, and here we are now. And then at that point, like things had kind of picked up enough such that we were able to work with a co-manufacturer. So I'll go over that briefly, RE co-manufacturing. But it is a fabulous time. It is a fabulous time. So they essentially like take over all the heavy lifting for making your product. And I'll make a separate video about the pros and cons of co-manufacturing in a bit. But for us, like it was a bit of a weird, it was a bit of a weird relationship. I did end up having to rent space from them to do our own manufacturing because classic double chocolate macaroons, those are a nightmare to make. Just enjoy them for what they are, guys. Like a true nightmare to make. Yeah, they wouldn't touch them. Like I remember doing one manufacturing shift with the staff there making them, and afterwards they were just like, no, this isn't gonna work out. And I was like, okay, like, can I rent some space and make them myself? And they were okay with that, so that was very much appreciated because it's a top seller. So, yeah, we worked with them for a little while, and the thing is, like, there was kind of a personal connection there, I think, because I don't know, like the founder who's still like very active there, he grew up and was born in this city that I had visited that isn't like too common for people to visit, all these sorts of things, and we could speak the same language, all that sort of stuff. So they kind of kept me on longer than I think they would have a lot of other people with our volume, because our volume for manufacturing was nothing to write home about. It was like bare minimum got there for them. So yeah, that's the other thing with co-manufacturing. You need to meet a certain volume minimum before they will take you on as a client. So there was that. The issue there with co-manufacturing was, again, it was the double chocolate macaroons. Like things, I can't believe things are okay now with them, but like Bane. They had a piece of equipment we needed to manufacture that product in its entirety, but it was out of commission, and they were highly unmotivated to bring it back into commission because they didn't need it, and our volume was nothing crazy, so they didn't want to bother, which I totally understand. So at that point, I started toying with the idea of bringing things back in house, and quickly I had to, figure out a piece of equipment to replace this piece of equipment, and it was quite miraculous, nothing short of a miracle actually, that I found this piece of equipment, like a really like rinky-dink version of it, used on eBay, and the couple selling it, they drove it over from out of province as they were coming to BC anyway, so that was highly lucky. That brings us to the next phase of Zimt, which is when we really started getting into having our own manufacturing space, and I will talk about that in the next video.